Hey guys, this is Naveen here. Welcome back to Naveen Automation Labs. So with this video, we are going to talk about the next set of questions. And today's video is very interesting, guys. A lot of good things I'm going to tell you with respect to API testing, with respect to API standards, that which method has to be called with respect to HTTP method, what is the difference between get call, post call, put call, and all such things, and some interesting facts also, which are really, really important for not only for interview point of view, but important for your knowledge with respect to API testing and API architecture point of view also. You should know about it. So very interesting video. If you haven't seen the first two videos, guys, please go and check that. This is part 1 and part 2 for API testing interview questions. It's not only about the interview questions, it's about that how exactly we perform the API testing. What do you mean by APIs and everything that I have explained over here? I'm pretty much sure after watching these two videos, a lot of doubts and amazing things that you will be get to know about the APIs and how exactly API works internally. So let's start for the next set of questions. I'm going to share my screen now. So this is my screen. So the last question we were talking about that up to 31 we have already seen. Let's see the question number 32. What are some key characteristics of REST? See, first of all, that there are many things that you can explain over here. Most important thing here is that there are, first of all, number of HTTP methods are there. Uh, you can say the post call, put call, get call, delete call, options, head. There are many features that we are going to talk about in current upcoming questions also. But important thing is that REST is stateless. It means stateless means you should know about it. What do you mean by stateless, or what do you mean by stateful APIs, or stateless and stateful protocols and architecture? It means server has no status about the session data. Server does not maintain any session data or does not maintain any user context or any session ID, nothing at the server side. That's why REST APIs are always stateless. That's why REST APIs can easily be scalable for the horizontal scaling point of view also, and then to handle the multiple requests back to back coming on the server. I think that's why the stateless protocols are always better than the stateful APIs or a stateful architecture, because stateless are at the server side we don't maintain the context of the user. What do you mean by this? This is because this is what people might ask you at time of interview. What do you mean by stateless? What do you mean by stateful? Let me give you a basic example over here. See this carefully. So let's say this is your user. Let's say user 1, user 2, and user 3. And this is my server. For example, let's say web server or application server, and this is my database. Let's talk about the stateful APIs. I'm not talking about the stateless first. Let's talk about the stateful. So what happens when you send the request to the web server? This particular user 1, for example, let's see, this is my user number 1. And this is my database where the actual data information is available over here. And this is my, I would say, let's see, app server, or your web server is available over here. And this is my client, or you can say the user. I'm sending a request to this particular user. And what happens, let's see, there are some other users also available. For example, there are some other app servers also available. And then all these app servers are, let's see, routed through a load balancer. So for example, let's see, this is my load balancer. And then through the load balancer, the particular request will be sent to a specific server. So let's say this user 1 is sending the request to the load balancer, and load balancer will redirect this request to this particular server number 1. So let's see, this is my server 1. This is my server number 2. And I can say this is my server number 3. And there are multiple users are there. For example, let's say user number 2, this is my user number 3, and then like that. Okay. And then all the server are fetching the information if the request is completely fulfilled, fetching the information from the database. So they are all connected with the database over here like this. A typical client server architecture, 3-tier architecture that I'm using it over here. Now what happens that, okay, when we send the one request to the server, application server, and then application server in the stateful APIs, the server will maintain the user context. It means whatever the user session ID is available. For example, let's see, I'm talking about the SID, session ID. If any user profile that I really want to maintain, or let's see, any context about that particular user, the user context or session ID or a profile or something like this, it will be stored at the server level, right? So what happens that, okay, next time if this particular user is again coming, and then the same server will respond back, server will recognize that, okay, yeah, you're talking about the same session ID and then same user and everything is there, and server will respond back to this particular user. But the problem with this approach is that what if this particular server is down? That is the problem. Once the server is down, again, let's see, user has already purchased a product, or let's see, wants to purchase a product on, let's see, on e-commerce application, and he or she will add that particular product to the add to cart, let's see, to the checkout page, or already added to the checkout page or cart page. Then let's see, by the time the server is gone, or the server is shut down, or maybe server is not responding, like that, then again user will come and then really wants to purchase that particular product. Now the request will be sent to this particular server. Now this server has no idea that what exactly this user is all about. What exactly, because this user SID, profile ID, or on context or user context, everything is stored at this particular server level, not at the server 2 level. So that is what the problem with the user is, that again user has to search the product, add to cart, go to the checkout page, and then make the payment. So user has to follow all the steps once again from the beginning. This is the problem with the stateful APIs I'm talking about. Okay, but in stateless APIs, what happens? See this carefully. In a stateless, let's prepare us one more diagram over here. Try to understand, guys, these are the design questions people might ask you, and you should know about it. Let's see, again, this is user number 1, user number 2, user number 3. We have this particular load balancer, and then let's see, multiple servers are there. And then we have one database also over here. Let's see, this user number 1 is sending the request to the server, to the load balancer to the user, let's see, server number 1. And this is my server number 2. And then they all are connected with the database once again. Okay. I'm talking about the stateless APIs, or a stateless protocol, or a stateless architecture. Then in that case, what happens? Let's see, this is the user 1 is sending the request. So in the stateless architecture, server never store any user profile or any context, nothing. Server has no idea about this particular user. So where exactly that particular user information or session ID or context will be stored? That will be stored somewhere in maybe some in cache database, or maybe in some NoSQL database, let's see, some MongoDB or something like this. So let's say I'll maintain one cache over here, or cache DB over here. So this is my cache, or let's see, some maybe NoSQL database I'll be maintaining. So that particular user context information, whenever we are sending a request to the server, and then we are actually storing that information to the cache. Let's see, for this particular user 1, I have all the user profile, the context, and everything is let's see, session ID, and then any state of that particular user that I'm going to use. So generally we say this information as a state, user state, or I would say the request state. So state means as session ID, the user context, profile information about that particular user, or maybe it can be stored somewhere in the NoSQL database also, like that. Server does not maintain or does not store any SID or context or state information about that particular user. So what is happening here in this case, let's see, I have already added to the cart, and then let's see, this particular server is down. Again, user is coming after 10 minutes, for example, and then again sending a request to the server that, okay, hey, I want to purchase that particular product now. So I'll immediately go to my cart, and then let's see, this time the request has been sent to this particular server, because obviously load balancer will decide that this server is down right now. So it will send the request to some other server. This server will read the information about that particular user from the cache, and the cache will be sent it over here. And then this user no need to perform the same things again and again. It means no need to add to the cart once again and search the product. Immediately I'll go to my cart page and then make the payment, and that's it. And the server will respond back to the user that, okay, yeah, the order is successfully done. So in this way, the scaling is very good. Tomorrow, let's see, n number of thousands of millions of users are hitting the servers, and then the user information is never being stored, and all these user context information, the session ID of that particular user, will never be stored at the server side. It will always be stored somewhere in the cache database, or maybe some caching mechanism that we have to use. Maybe we can use the Redis cache mechanism over here, or maybe some NoSQL database like inside the MongoDB. We can use that. And then once the cache is also having the TTL, the timeout, and once the session is expired or something, we can delete this particular user information from the cache also, or user cache can be deleted from here. So server will never store the information about the state of the user or about the session ID of the user. That's why these kind of architecture is called stateless architecture. That's what it's written over here in the explanation also, that REST APIs are always stateless. It means at the server side, we never maintain any user context information or any session ID or any user ID over here. I hope it's clear. So it's not about only knowing about the answer, but you should know that what do you mean by this, the stateful and the stateless APIs. Okay, let's take to the next question. Messaging in RESTful web services, you can just ignore that. It's not that great question, but web services uses the HTTP protocol as a communication tool between the client and server that we have already seen. The technique that we client sends a message in the form of HTTP request, and the server sends back the HTTP reply. That response we are getting from the server is called a messaging. Okay, so that you can say that that is called the messaging in the RESTful web services. Now let's take the next question. What are the core components of HTTP request? So see this. Every request is having a couple of things. First of all, that you have to decide that, first of all, it's a kind of HTTP method that we have to use. It could be get call, put call, post call, delete call. Then as I told you that a particular URI also we have to pass a uniform resource identifier along with the HTTP protocol, which is identifier for the resource on the server, that what exactly you are looking for. You're looking for account information, your user information, you want to delete the data, you want to update the user, you want to create a user. Complete URI information that we have to put it over here along with the HTTP method. Then you have to declare that, okay, what kind of HTTP version it is, 1.0, 1.1 or 2.0, like that. And then along with that, we have to pass certain headers also. For example, that headers in the form of key and value pair format, that it could be what kind of client that you are using, what is the request payload that we are sending, what kind of request payload, it is a JSON or XML or what, right? Or any kind of cache setting that you really want to pass that, and then you can pass that. And then we are having the request body that is called a payload. For example, payload means, let's say in the case of post call, we have to pass a JSON payload or XML payload, such information that we can pass over here. I'll give you one practical example. Let's say for a post call, you go to this, let's say post APIs and post add user over here. You can see this is my post call. Let's see create user. This is my post call, and this is my HTTP method. We are using post, and this is a complete URI that we are passing. Don't say this is a URL, right? This is a URI. URI is having its own protocol, whatever the domain name, it means the URL name and everything, and then the resource information about that v2, and then users. And then along with that, you can see the header information also. Let's say I want to pass some token over here or any content type, what kind of content length and everything that I really want to pass. This is the body section. It means this is my, see if you see, click on beautify. This is my JSON payload that I'm going to pass over here. It can be anything. It can be JSON, it can be XML, HTML, anything. And then along with that, I'm passing some headers and if any parameters, if you really want to pass that, and then that's it. When you send this request to the server, for example, let's see, I'm writing this one, and then you send it, then you are getting a response over here that user got created successfully. So in the request, these are the important things you have to explain at a time of interview. Let's see the next question. What are the most commonly used HTTP methods supported by the REST? Of course, that there are a couple of important methods. First of all, get. Get is only used to request. See, get means retrieve the data from a specific resource, right? And then get request can be cached and bookmarked. See, this is important. What do you mean by cache? And why get call is cached or bookmarked? It means whatever the request that you are getting from the let's see from the server, that back to back, that let's say you are getting some request. Let's see the server is sending a request to the client, and then you're sending, first of all, request to the server, and then it's going responding back to the user. Let's see, this is like every time for a request, this guy has to check this, it's let's see order history. And let's see, there are hundreds of orders are there. So what exactly we can do here is that we can, whatever response we are getting from the server, this 100 data that we are getting, or the count is around, let's see, 100 products or 100 user information or order information, we can cache it over here. So all these information can be cached. So instead of sending the request to the server directly, we will just directly hit this particular cache, and then we are getting the response immediately. It means we are saving time. Server has no need to process this particular request again and again and fetching the information about that particular product history or order history. And then again, it will take some time. So with the help of cache, it will be fast as compared to the non-cache. So that's why get call can be cached because every time we have to fetch a lot of information from the server. So it remains the browser history and has length restrictions. Get request should never be used when dealing with the sensitive data also. It means whenever we are using, let's say, get call, we never pass along with the URL like username, password, or token ID or something like that. It should be a plain, whatever simple URL along with the resource information. And then it can be cached, it can be bookmarked. So that's why in the browser also, we can just bookmark all those requests which are having the GET call. It can be cached also. Then let's talk about the post call. Post is used to send the data to the server to create an update. Yes, with the post call, generally we say that, okay, yeah, to create a resource, to create a data, let's say I want to create a new user, I want to create a new customer, I want to, let's see, place a new order like that. But at the same time, if I really want to update a resource, that also we can do that. So post can be used for create and update a resource also. But generally, ideally, we always use post call for creating a user. Post requests are never cached, remember. Post request I can never be cached or can never be bookmarked also, and does not maintain any browser history as well with the post call. Okay. Now let's do the next one. Put replaces all the current representation of the target resource with the request payload. So put means generally we have to use put call to update the specific user information. For example, let's see if I go to the postman. Let's see, this is my post call, and then you simple send a request, and then the user got created. Let's see, let's pass a new email ID and send the request. So this is my typical post call. It got created. But whenever I'm using a put call, okay, so in with respect to put call, what you have to, you just need to pass out, okay, specific information that I really want to put it. I mean, I really want to update. For example, let's say I just want to update this guy. Status should be inactive in that way. So I simple say, okay, inactive. ID is, let's see, 4721. So I'll write, okay, for this particular user, 4721, and it should be a put call, right? And then earlier the status was active. Now let's see, it should be inactive. So only specific information I'm passing. I'm saying, okay, no, only status should be inactive. So I can simply say, okay, fine. Now see, for the same ID, status is inactive now. For example, let's see, I'll remove all these information from here. And then I'll say, okay, no, again, back to active. So let's see, for 4721, the status should be active now. So this is a put call. Put means the entire object that I'm going to pass it over here. Let's see, status active object that I'm going to pass. And then the status active will be updated over here. Now I'll do one thing. Along with that, I'm going to pass the entire other information also. Let's see over here. I'll remove ID from here. Let's see this information. So what will happen that, see, I'm just changing active to inactive now. So it's not about only status will be updated over here. It will replace whatever the latest value that you are passing, name, email, and the gender also will be updated over here. So it means this entire object with the help of put call will be updated here. So I'm sending the request once again. Now see, it will be again inactive. So what will happen? Mail will replace this mail. Earlier, let's see, it was mail only, but again, it will be updated with the mail only, right? So whatever the information that you are passing, that will be updated along with the previous information also will be updated over here. So all these objects will be updated. The entire object will be updated with the put call. Now let's see the next one. Then along with the put, I'll tell you the patch also. Patch means only specific information that I really want to update. So let's see the patch information. In the patch information says, okay, fine, I really want to update, let's see, its name. So I'll remove this guy. I'll remove name and gender also. Then I'll say, okay, fine, instead of Tenali Ramakrishna, I'll say, okay, Tenali Sharma, like that. Then in that way, what will happen here? Only Tenali Sharma will be updated. Email, gender, status, ID, everything will remain same over here. See, I'm just updating and the name will be updated to Tenali Sharma and rest of the things will remain same. So this is also, patch is also used to update the information, but along with the patch, it will not update the entire object. It will just update the specific value that you are passing in a specific the name and key value pair format that you are passing, right? Only that information will be updated. But along with the put call, the entire object will be replacing the existing one. Okay. So let's see the next one. Then we have the delete. Delete means remove the specified resource if you really want to delete that. So let's take one example. Let's say I really want to delete a call. And in delete, we don't need to pass any payload. We just need to say, okay, fine, delete this particular 4721 user. So let's see, it's saying, yeah, 204 not found. And then the user got deleted from here. So you can just say that, okay, fine, user got deleted here, right? Now let's see the options. Options is used to describe the communication options for the target resource. Remember this, what do you mean by options? See, option is another HTTP method over here. You can use it over here. I have an example. Let me show you an example here. Let's see this one. So let's see example.org and then options. So options will tell you that how many methods are allowed, right? How many HTTP methods are allowed for this particular URL. So let's say I'm sending this request, is giving you 200 OK. You go to the response header section, and then here you will see that options means get, head, and post allowed for this particular URL. So these are the different methods you can use it. Options, get, head, and post for example.org. So that is the purpose of the options used to describe that what exactly communication is allowed for that particular target resource. Let's talk about the head. Head asks for a response identical to that of a get request, but without any response body. So head and get both are exactly same thing. But head will just give you the header information, the response header information. It will not give you any response body. So let's say I really say that, okay, fine, give me all the users with the get call. So whenever you're using, let's see, with the get call, if it is allowed, for example, let's see this one, give me all the users. I'm saying give me all the users with the get call. So let me use get over here and let's send the request. Okay. And with the get call, I don't need all these guys. So remove that. And let's see, I'm sending. So you can see that entire information that we are getting over here along with the response headers. And it's a huge payload that we are getting. This is called your response body. But if you make it to the head over here, it means just don't give me any response body. See, it's not giving you any response body, only and only headers will be given over here. So that is the difference between head and get. It just like identical to the get request, but without any response body. Okay, that is the difference between head and get. Now let's see, can get request to be used instead of a put to create a resource? The put and post method should be used to create a resource. Get is only used to request data for a specific resource. It means to retrieve the data for a specific resource from the server, we can use it. So get request cannot be used to put or create a user or to update a user. Put and post has to be used for that. Is there any difference between put and post operations? Yes, of course it is. As I told you that put and post operations are quite similar and it's quite confusing also. See this. Generally, we say that, okay, yeah, put operation is idempotent. It means so you can cache the response while the responses to post operations are not cacheable. As I told you that both can be used to create a user and to update a user. But remember with one thing, whenever let's say you are hitting post call back to back. So let's see, this is my post call user that I want to create. And I'll want to create a user with this particular post call. Let's say I'm sending a request. And here you can see that one user got created over here with the ID 4813. Now, every time I'm going to hit this particular request, every time it will create a new entry in the database, right? So let's see if I'm creating a new entry, something like this, it will create another, you can see another user 4830 ID, user ID is this. So whenever I'm hitting the post call, every time it's going to create a new entry in the database. But with the put call means whenever you are hitting with the put call, it will just update the existing entry. It will not create unnecessary new entry inside the database or new user every time. That is what we discussed about it, right? Put is used to update a specific resource. It will not create a new entry over there, but with the post call, it will always try to create a new entry in the database. Let's say you hit the registration form 5 times or 10 times, it means 5 users will be created. For example, let's say if you go to this application, I'll go to this, let's see my open card application. On open card application, I'll go to my, let's say I'm going to log in and then I'm going to log in here. Fine. And let's see, edit your account information. And let's say I just want to update my phone number. So let's see my phone number now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, something like this. And then I'm going to click on continue. So that will be internally a put call. I just want to update my, or maybe it could be a patch call. I just want to update my telephone number. Please do not create one more entry in the database. So when I click on continue, it's saying, okay, yeah, your user information or account has been updated successfully. But let's see, if I really want to create a new user, let's see, go to logout and then I click on register. And now I want to fill this particular information. Whenever I'm clicking on continue after filling this information, it will be a post call internally along with entire JSON will be created with the first name, last name and everything. And then I'm going to send the request to the server that please create a new account for me or new resource for me, resource account data for me, right? And then again, I'm going to fill this particular information. Again, a new entry will be created inside the database. So that is the basic difference between post and put in terms of creating the resource. That's why we can say that put operation is idempotent, means you can cache the response while the response to post operation not cacheable. And if you retry the request n number of times, see, you will end up having only n resource with n different URIs created on the server. In web API testing interview, you should give a specific example for put and post that I have already explained you like that. For example, let's see, this is what they have given from the device management. Give me all the devices. So get all devices. Post means create a new device over here. Again, then give me the specific device on the basis of device ID. So get the device information, identify by ID. Then we have this update the device information on the basis of this particular ID. And then delete means please delete this particular device by using this particular ID. It could be device ID 123 or whatever it is. Okay. Then I'm going to explain you that, see, there is one more thing that this information also, let me quickly update that. Put means it is used to update the record, and each and every details of that particular record will be get updated. As I told you, it means the entire object will be updated. Patch means it is also used to update the record. And here important thing is whatever details will be provided in the payload, only email, let's say I'm passing, or only phone number, only that particular phone number will be updated, right? So that is the difference between put and patch. Let's take another difference between get and post also, right? This is also a very important difference. Get is harmless because I'll tell you why. Harmless means it will not create any new entry in the database. You simply say, okay, fine, give me the user information about where user ID equal to 8. It will just give you that information. But in post, data will be resubmitted. The browser should alert the user that the data are about to be resubmitted, means again and again it will try to create a new user like that. Okay. Bookmark means it can be bookmarked, it cannot be bookmarked. It means whenever I'm using a get call in the browser, I can bookmark it. Cache means it can be cached, but it cannot be cached. That we have already discussed about it. Encoding time means for the URL encoding type means application form and URL encoded, we can use it, and then it can use any type of data, multi-part or encoding the binary data and all such things. It can use that. Parameters remain in the browser history in terms of history. Parameters are not saved in the browser history. Restriction on the data length. A couple of people were asking that this question that can we use get in the form of post? See, when sending the get method, they say, okay, fine, can we pass the payload with the get call? You cannot pass the payload as a body with the get call, but you can pass the payload in the form of URL. But we have the URL limitation that maximum URL length can be 2048 characters. But let's say you have a huge payload. Let's say you really want to create a huge amount of data, or let's say for a specific user, you have to fill the entire form, and it's a big payload that you are really passing. But in post call in the body, we don't have any restriction. For example, let's say if you go to the postman once again over here, and whenever you are using a post call, let's say tomorrow I have hundreds of attributes that I really want to create for a specific user, I can create that. But in the get call, there is no concept of body. See, I cannot give the body over here. But in the get call, what we have to do, let's see, it's a get call. Okay. In the get call, you can say, okay, fine. In the URL itself, I can pass the data. Then my email ID is equal to this, first name and last name, date of birth, everything I can pass along with the URL. But we have a character length limit for the URL. Maximum 2048 characters I can use in the get call. So that's why generally we never use, in fact, not generally, we never use, it's always a bad practice to pass the payload in the URL with the get call. Okay, that's why when sending the data, the get method adds the data to the URL, as I told you. And the length of the URL is limited. Maximum URL length is 2048 characters. But in post call, just add the payload in the response, in the request payload body, and then huge amount of payload you can add it. There is no restriction about that. Restriction on a data type, only ASCII characters are allowed. That is also in the URL. Only ASCII characters are allowed, but here in the payload, you can pass any data. In fact, binary data is also allowed. There is no restriction about it over here. Whenever you are using a post call, it's a huge payload, any binary data, any kind of data, you can pass it over here. But in the get call, the URL should be always the ASCII Unicode characters. You have to use it there. I hope it's clear. Now, the difference between get, post, put, delete, everything. Okay. Now, as I told you, what is the purpose of options method serve? to the RESTful web services. As I told you, that options method lists down all the operations of a web service supports. It means what are the different methods are supported, right? Okay, let me just give you one more quick example quickly. See this, I'm using this example.org with the options tag. You send the request, you're getting 200 okay, and you are getting one header in the response allowed. It means what are the different methods are allowed: options, get, head, and post. This is what is explained over here. Then in the last session, I have already told you what is URI, what is the main purpose of the REST-based services, and what is its format. URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. It means this is my URI. If you come over here, this is my URI. This URI is containing what? The purpose of the URI is to locate a resource. I'll say, okay, fine. This is your service URL. Users is my resources. I want to fetch this particular users resources from the database. So that's what the URI is containing everything. It's containing its domain, www.abc.com, the protocol that you are going to use that, and along with the resource information also, or the query parameter or any path parameter that also you are using it. That is complete URI that you are creating in the request, and then you are sending it to the server. So that is the main purpose of the URI, and this is about the URI. Okay, and this is the format that I have already told you. Format is protocol, HTTP protocol, whatever the service name, abc.com or whatever it is, resource type, let's see user type, and / resource ID, let's see my user ID /8, like that. What is payload in RESTful web service? Very simple. Payload means the data that you are sending with the request and the data that you are getting in the response. So that is called request payload and the response payload. You can say that. So for example, this is my request payload that we are getting it, and this is my response payload that we are getting it over here. The response payload could be, let's see, JSON format, XML format. It could be my, any string also, anything that you really want to pass. And in the response also, we can get any response in the form of JSON, XML, or images, or any HTML page, anything that you can get it over here. So payload is a data type you are interested in transporting, right, while communicating. This is differentiated from the things that wrap the data for the transfer, like HTTP, request, response, header, authentication, etc. Okay, so this is about the payload. Now let's do the next question. What is the upper limit for a payload to pass in post method? See, in get, appends data to the service URL, because in get call we have only service URL, and then site should not be accessed to the maximum URL length, that is 2048 characters. Important interview question. Note it down in the URL in the get call. What is the URL length? In fact, the URL length cannot be exceeded in any kind of call. That is a maximum URL length you can use up to 2048 characters. But in the post call doesn't have any such limit. You can pass any kind of request payload in the form of JSON or XML or anything. Okay, so you can see that theoretically user can pass unlimited data as a payload to post method. But if we consider a real use case, then sending post with a large payload will consume more bandwidth. Obviously, let's say you are sending, let's see, you really want to create a product. And for that particular product, let's say there are 100 sellers are there. So that will be a seller array. Product information, product metadata, its pricing information, its brand information, color, description, images information. So it's a huge payload that you are creating and sending it to the server. So obviously it will consume more time and more bandwidth. So it will take more time and performance challenges to your server. Hence, users should take actions accordingly. Okay. What is the caching mechanism? Caching mechanism, I have already told you that store the data in the temporary resource temporarily and retrieving the data from the high performance store, usually memory, either explicitly or implicitly. Instead of fetching the data directly from the database or directly from the server, we just fetch the information first time and store it inside the cache server. And whenever the user is want to get this information, instead of getting it from the server, we take it from the cache server, so that in the cache, the data is already available. The moment we send the request to the server, to the load balancer immediately get the data from the cache and then immediately serve to the client. So that's why the performance, it can be improved drastically. So that is the caching mechanism, just a practice of storing data temporarily and retrieving the data from high performance store, either explicitly or implicitly. When a caching mechanism is placed, it helps to improve the delivery speed by storing a copy of the asset. It means copy of the data that you are requesting and later accessing the cached copy instead of the original. So that is an important concept of the cache mechanism, that instead of hitting the server again and again, I mean, it means the server is getting the data from the database again and again. Better you store the data in the cache and then cache will serve the data to the user. That's why you can save a lot of time and the performance of the application. Now that next section will be the SOAP-based question we will take in the next video. I hope it's clear today, whatever we have covered. Please go through once again the chapter 1, chapter 2, and the chapter 3 means API testing part 1, 2, and 3. That is the third part that we're covering today. But API 1 and 2 also very important, guys, for the interview point of view and for the API testing point of view. So today it's about more of a API structure, architecture, different HTTP methods, the difference between get call, post call with some good examples like that. Please go through it. These are the standard important interview questions people will definitely ask you, and make sure that, okay, you are not giving the bookish knowledge, you're giving the practical answer about the stateful, caching mechanism, get call, post call, like that. Okay, I hope it's clear. So that's all for this particular video, guys. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, press the bell icon to get a notification for the next video. There are a lot of good things are coming on the channel. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, take care and God bless you.